It's an eye-watering amount of money that this person is losing on a monthly basis trying to keep his businesses afloat, and that is the owner of the GAY Nightclub. It's at Heaven in London, Jeremy Joseph, who joins me live via video link. Evening to you, Jeremy.
Good evening. That actual post I put up was just what I was saying, that it was costing us based on Rishi offering £9,000 grant, but the actual true figures of what is going on is that we just hit the £1 million mark in what we paid in rent since March with zero income.
So
that's
you
£1 million that we're paying rent. And the issue is that this government is failing to address the biggest issue. It's all very well. I don't want a £9,000 grant. You know, those grants should be going to homes, to families, people who can't afford to feed themselves. It's a really simple answer. Bring in guidance for landlords to protect businesses. It's a really simple. You wouldn't have to give businesses money if we could come to some sort of agreement regarding rent.
What would you say to those people that would say, well, look, also, and I know you're a fair man, you'll see this point, that landlords are business owners as well, and they would need to get some sort of recompense for this.
So what the problem is that landlords are not willing to negotiate, and you have to negotiate. So, you know, at the very beginning of the pandemic, Boris Johnson made a statement, said that nobody should earn money out of COVID. So, you know, what landlords should be doing is negotiating with tenants and going, right, okay, we have to cover this amount. So what they should maybe is take a percentage of the rent that covers their costs, but they shouldn't earn profit out of it. But at the moment, when we're closed, we're paying 100% rent. When we were open at 25% capacity, we're paying 100% rent. When we got reduced our hours by the curfew, we're paying 100% rent. We are paying rent in full, not based upon what we're paying for. It's like if you pay for a journey on a train, you pay for how far you're going on the train. Well,
You're not paying your rent based on footfall and what is actually coming through your door at the moment. The other option as well.
There's also another thing as well. So I'll just put another. You mentioned about landlords, but there are some landlords, and I'm not going to mention who, but you know, the furlough is available, and there are some landlords who are claiming full rent and their staff are on furlough. Well, again, that doesn't make sense to me. It's like, you know, there's a lot going on, and it's like what you know, furlough was set up to protect jobs. But if you don't protect businesses, there are no jobs to go back to.
I also don't understand why the government didn't bring in some sort of scheme of maybe paying a portion of the rent themselves in a grant to landlords. So, you know, you pay 25%, the government pays 25%, the landlord gets 50% of their rent. It's a less of a strain on you. The government subsidises things that way. How many people do you employ, Jeremy?
It's the biggest thing that's caused me the most mental health problems throughout this lockdown is rent. It is the one thing, you know, we're not just, because rent is obviously our biggest cost. We have other bills to pay, our electricity, all the other bills have still got zero income, lots of other bills coming in, but the rent is that huge figure. I mean, you saw what I printed, 409,000 a quarter is our rent. You know, and we've been closed, you know, this has been going for 9 months. We don't, you know, hospitality and businesses, we want to support the government and everybody in keeping people safe. I agree with the lockdown. Look at the figures today. They're horrendous. We need a lockdown, but I shouldn't have to be thinking, and neither should anyone else. We should all be thinking about one thing. How do we keep people safe? Let's concentrate on the lockdown. But I'm having that taken away from me because I'm actually more concerned about how am I going to financially survive this? Where will I be when this ends? You know,
because how many people work for you?
I shouldn't have to think about that.
How many people work for you, Jeremy?
160.
So these are a lot of livelihoods.
So here's another thing as well. So he's Rishi very, you know, said we're continuing furlough, but businesses. So, you know, it costs us £25,000 a month in national insurance and pensions that the government don't cover. So we have to pay, you know, so he's offering us £9,000, but actually I'm paying more in pensions and national insurance. The figures don't add up again. it's like, you know, why
what
are
do you need? What if Rishi Sunak was in front of you now? What do you need?
What I need him to do is to go back to the original thing, which is pay the he should pay the 80% of furlough and not ask us to pay national insurance and pension while we have no income. If he was here now, I would ask him, why has he ignored so many calls from hospitality and from businesses to negotiate and discuss with landlords about the way forward? He has ignored it. He has been asked this question so many times, but it's the one thing he has ignored, and it makes no sense whatsoever. And, you know, I just want him to sit down and discuss it. The one thing this government has failed to do throughout this whole pandemic, and it was very interesting watching Tony Blair on TV this morning, and he talked about that when he was in government and the issues that he could deal with, he went and they had to talk to people, you know, who had more experience in the areas that they didn't have. And this is the problem. The government are not talking to anybody. So, you know, they're not discussing with us, how can we move forward? What do we need to do? It's a simple subject today about the vaccination. It's like Tony Blair, again, is asking very good questions. He's going, why is the vaccination not available in chemists? You know, they're talking about the NHS can't cope. You know, they haven't got the staff to, you know, put maybe the vaccination to people's arm. Well, you know, Boots the chemist, that's where I got my flu vaccine from. They know how to administer the well,
you've offered your venue, haven't you?
Well, it's not just us. I mean, I did tweet it. So what actually happened, so I can tell you the true story. I actually approached our local MP, Westminster City Council, and we did the same in Manchester today, offering our venues. I wasn't going to post it or anything like that because it was supposed to be a private thing. Do you want to use? We have a nightclub. We have a capacity of 1,625. It's a great space. It's empty. Please use it. And then what happened was there was rumblings that, you know, of why the vaccination isn't being spread out as quickly as possible. So we thought, well, we need to actually, you know, when the government say, oh, the hospitals are full and things like that, I thought, well, then I do have to post this. I do have to say we are offering venues, and it's not just us. There are so many other hospitality venues offering their venues. Tony Blair's asking about pharmacies. So we are all trying to go to the government.
I know that I saw the Vauxhall Tavern has offered. There are other places that have offered as well. And it's amazing the way that venues are wanting to step up. How close are you, Jeremy, to losing it all? I mean, I don't mean sort of in the mental sense. We'll get to that in a moment. But I'm talking about actually losing your business.
I don't actually know the answer to that. I mean, we have got one more little bit of, we do have some money in the bank account. It is dropping dramatically. And the problem is that, you know, we're not being told how long this is going to go on for. As you know, that Boris Johnson said that he's going to review the current lockdown in mid-February. But obviously with what happened today in Parliament, it could go to the 31st of March.
Could you survive to the 31st of March? Could you survive till Easter?
Sorry?
Could you survive till 31st of March or Easter?
I don't know because the problem is I've got the rent situation to deal with. I've got, you know, we're having to look at all the bills coming in. So, you know, and things are coming in all the time. You know, I mean, like the things that we shouldn't be paying, like PRS and insurance. I mean, like we're not covered by insurance, but our insurance bill, which we had renewed last June or July, that was over £100,000. That will be at some point during the year need to be renewed again. We're a closed business. We don't get any discount on the insurance, but we have to, by law, we have to be insured. So, you know, we're looking at every bill as it comes in, and, you know, it's so hard. I don't want to say at any point that we're not going to survive this, because we have to find ways to survive it. Every business has to survive it. We have several responsibilities. We have a responsibility to our staff. We have, you know, GAY is nearly, 26, 27 years old. We have a responsibility to people who supported GAY over the years. I've got a responsibility to myself. I know you think I'm only 28, but I'm slightly older. But, you know, this is not just a business, but this is my pension. It's my future.
This has been, Jeremy Joseph, this has been your life. I've spoken to you many times about how, you know, as a baby gay, I used to come to GAY,
and that's the thing. So it's
for
not
years.
just a matter of losing a business. It's like, if GAY goes, what will I do? What will I do after that? You know,
So
this is my future as well.
On that
and then
basis,
just one other point to make, which is quite important. Heaven has been an LGBT venue for 40 years. When we bought Heaven, we bought a responsibility to the LGBT community to keep it an LGBT venue. And so that is a reason for fighting for it. We still have got an application. This is another annoying thing. We get a chance to put in an application for an Arts Council grant, which could be the savior of it all. But we only found out that the grant application gets open tomorrow. We got a couple of weeks to put the grant in, but we don't find out whether we're successful or not till around mid-March, end of March. It's like, well, that's another, it's like, hang on, we need it now. Yeah. Where are you?
How is your personal mental health, Jeremy? How are you?
You know what? One thing I realized in the first lockdown is, at first I felt guilty when I was having bad days, and I felt guilty because there are people who've got it a lot worse than I have. So I'm now getting to the fact that I think it's important that everybody does talk about their bad days, and it doesn't matter what your position is or how you are financially or what you do. I think a lot of business owners aren't really given the opportunity to talk about their own mental health. It's normally a lot about staff and other people, but you know, business owners are suffering as well. I'm struggling with this third lockdown more than I've struggled with any other lockdown. I'm struggling because I live on my own. Christmas was very difficult. The arrangements I had for Christmas were because I end up on my own with some M&S duck rolls, but they were nice. New Year's Eve actually was fun because I actually managed to do a Zoom event with lots of people I know, and that kept me occupied. But,
which may I say was completely free as well. You offered that to anyone who wanted to go along to that.
We offered it free. Well, one of the reasons we offered it free, it was because, you know, I think with a lot of events, they need to be free because they need to be accessible to everybody. And we did it for free because I actually panicked. I thought New Year's Eve for mental health would be harder struggle for people than actual Christmas. I mean, for me, Christmas was very much like, you know, I'd already been a week on my own. So it was just another day. I just hoped it would be better TV. Unfortunately, it wasn't. But then New Year, I thought was going to be more stressful to deal with. I thought that being on your own, coming up to midnight, and there is that stress of midnight where you know, there's always hope for a new year. There's always like, you know, but actually this year, that hope wasn't going to happen on December the 31st into January the 3rd. It's going to be later on. So New Year's Eve was always going to be a harder one. So that's why it was really important to do that event, so that hopefully that people had something where they could take their mind off things.
But also it helped you as well.
Yeah, it was actually, you know, this would have been the first time I hadn't worked on a new year in so many years. So I was desperate to work. But I think this lockdown's a lot harder. The figures that we're seeing at the moment are much more scarier. I have to say one thing is, obviously I run a lot. I training for marathons. I went for a run today. And the only good news about this current lockdown, I think, is people seem to be taking it more seriously. I think lockdown 1 at first, streets were empty. And I did today, I've got to throw it in there, 14-mile run. Wow. So I go through quite a long distance, but you get to see, like, you go through Shepherd. I go from Soho to Shepherd Bush to Hamilton. You get to, and it's a lot. In lockdown 1, it was very, very quiet. Lockdown 2 didn't feel like it was a lockdown. This lockdown, when I was running on the streets this morning, it was very, very quiet. And I hope that's going to be a good sign. See, you know, we're not going to see the effects of the lockdown for a couple of weeks, but I'm hoping that, you know, that people seem to be respecting this lockdown better than they did lockdown 2.
Just finally, very briefly, do you still have faith in Boris?
Have I got faith in Boris?
Yes.
Has anybody got faith in Boris? I think Boris is completely out. This government is completely out of this depth. The one thing, the other biggest problem we've got at the moment. Now, I used to be a big fan of Keir Starmer. I've lost a lot of support for him at the moment because he keeps abstaining. When you abstain, that takes away the right to argue. Boris is not being held accountable. So we need, first of all, a very, very strong opposition to stand up.
Well, we seem to have a government that doesn't govern and an opposition that doesn't oppose at the moment.
No one feels like they're being led at the moment.
Yeah.
What it was interesting today, I mean, watching Tony Blair, and for all his faults and what happened near the end of his leadership, but watching him today, you actually saw the essence of a leader.
No, I get it, Jeremy. We've got to wrap it up there. But I just want to say, look, we send you love. We'll keep in touch. You know, stay strong, and fingers crossed, we'll all see the light at the end of the tunnel soon. And I really thank you for taking the time to talk to us tonight.